It is my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Jamie Bell.
Thank you so much. Oh, wow. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Hope this thing on so you can hear me. Good. Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Good to see you all.
I wanted to start by asking you about the short film that this is based on, which won the Academy Award for Best Live Short this year. Did you want to dive into that and have a lot of familiarity and allow it to inform your approach to the story and character at all?
Well, I think the thing with the short is the reason that it was made in the first place is because Guy Nattiv, our filmmaker and screenwriter, had been shopping this script around for a few years, I think about 3 or 4 years or something, and everyone kept saying to him the same thing, which was A, no, we don't want to make it, and B, this doesn't exist. These people don't exist in this country. There's a small faction of the country. It's not a real thing. Like, come back when you have something kind of real. And then a certain person was elected, and then everyone realized they were wrong. And then suddenly there was a huge urgency to make it. There was we were kind of thrust into production. In the meantime, in between those two things happening, he went and made the short, and he'd already come to me with the script, and I was very intrigued by it. Of course, I was very hesitant as well at the same time for many different reasons. But he won an Oscar last year, so it was kind of extraordinary what happened to him with that. But yeah.
Because you mentioned just now being a little bit hesitant about saying yes, what were some of the questions that you felt you needed to ask yourself before saying yes to this role?
Why are we making it? Yeah. We're currently living in such an incendiary time and such a frankly scary, horrendous. These people are very empowered currently. They're very emboldened. They are increasing in numbers. It was just today in the New York Times that someone said there are 1,000 of these chapters across this country. 1,000. So to me, I kind of felt like. For example, the first time I talked to Bryan, the guy in the movie, it was the day of Charlottesville. And I got off the phone with him, and I called Guy, our filmmaker, and I said, we can't make this. What are we doing? This is completely wrong. This is stupid to be making this. We're giving these people a platform, certainly from this perspective, possibly, where we are we're doing something that might not be okay. And he's an Israeli man. His family suffered through the atrocities of the Holocaust. So I always really valued his opinion, because if anyone shouldn't be making this film, it's him. Or at least extending that kind of courtesy, that companionship. I mean, it's just the truth. So I appreciated that possibility of someone understanding more about compassion and more about kindness than maybe I did. I'm someone who doesn't forgive very easily. So don't fucking cross me. Frankly, because I won't forgive you ever. But that was a huge kind of moral lesson for me, and I'm still kind of grappling with that as we move forward, and now having made the film. I put it this way: I would not have made this film if I didn't think that this film depicted the roots of evil authentically, but also in turn the roots of compassion and kindness, and how those two things can potentially intersect and affect change positively. I would not have been able to morally make this movie. No question.
And did you feel like, because Guy also wrote the script, I think that often as an actor gives you very unique access to question certain lines, certain choices. Did you feel like that really opened up and gave you a lot more freedom to do that with this specific role, with the necessity of being able to do it for this film?
Yeah, we were in constant kind of combat with each other really throughout this whole film, because his script, sometimes I felt like let the character off the hook a little bit too early. So I was always like pushing, like, no, you can't like allow him to have different opinions. You have to like keep him in it for longer. So I was always like pushing this agenda with him, where he'd come up to me and he would say things like, you need to be looking at the rest of your group and the rest of the rest of this gang in a way that was kind of judging them. And I was like, no, that's not what he would do. It's very difficult for these people to see the error of their ways. It really takes a lot for people to see how wrong they are in the things that they have done. So I was constantly always pushing the script in the direction of how difficult it is for him to see the light, how hard it would be for someone who is entrusted, the Bill Kemp character, the Vera Farmiga character, people who have really taken this guy under their wing. It's all he knows. Yeah. There's a dependency on that, and how difficult it is. We must have all had relationships where the sensation that if I leave these people, who am I? I'm nothing. And everything I've done in my life means absolutely zero. So I was always trying to make sure that the character still had a foot in that world for as long as we could. I felt that was probably more authentic. It's more true to a human experience, trying to get rid of something that we all know is bad for them, but they don't. Like an addiction or something like that. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask about the physical transformation that you took for this role, because it also included gaining weight. You had prosthetic teeth, I believe.
Yeah, alongside not my fucking teeth.
In addition to the tattoos, which is a very obvious physical transformation. What was it that made you want to do the additional physical transformations to really inhabit this character?
We did a couple makeup tests early on, and I think I was working on something else at the time, and I remember looking in the mirror and going I don't buy it. Yeah. It just looks like you stuck a bunch of tattoos on me, and it doesn't quite look right. I also have these ears, which are quite childlike, and they certainly don't say predator. Hopefully. So we did a bunch of tests on having these applications behind my ear that my ear could then adhere to, so that maybe my kind of head would be more streamlined, and that kind of wasn't working, because anytime you had the camera over the shoulder, you would see that I had this application on my head. I was just looking for something that was ferocious. I was looking for something where you would look at it and be afraid, and it was taking forever. And Guy basically was like, you need to go and put on 40 pounds. And I was like, okay, I'll just go do that overnight. But then also I wanted to look into this character's eyes and just see darkness. So we tried a bunch of different contact lenses, 1,000 different variations of brown. We found the right one that wouldn't refract light in the same way. I wanted them to be a cavern of darkness. And then we molded Bryan's actual teeth, and we fit them for my mouth, so that's actually Bryan's teeth. And finally shaved my head, and I was like, fuck, I look like a shark. Which is good. Which for me, I was like, God, there's something that is there is those lifeless eyes. There is something that is, this character is always moving, he's always physical, and when he strikes, he is devastating. He's incredibly violent, he's incredibly intimidating. And there's something about sharks in the ocean that I always there is a loneliness to them. There is an isolate. They want to be isolated, and that to me felt right. And I just used that basically. Yeah.
What was the emotional response for yourself the first time you looked in a mirror and saw the full makeup with the tattoos? Because it's incredibly jarring, and you also had the experience of, because it was low budget, they couldn't always reapply them, and so you had to go out into the world and live that way in between shooting, even on weekends sometimes.
Yeah,
as well.
we made this movie for less than peanuts. It's barely trail mix. So there came a point in the shoot where they were like, I said to my makeup guy, I was like, I can't wait to get these things off. God, this has been a brutal week. Probably just getting kicked in the nuts, or doing something that was just horrendous. And I said, God, let's just go back and get it all off. And he was like, yeah, about that. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, we've run out of cash. So literally, I spent a week or a week and a half, whatever it was, where to kind of protect them, because if they messed up, or if I slept on them in the wrong way, we wouldn't be able to shoot the next week. And it was amazing how quickly the crew just disappeared. No one wanted to get breakfast with me. No one wanted to have lunch with me. No one would take my order at the bar. No one wanted, it was, but it was interesting. I mean, that is an insight into who this person was. also an insight into human nature, I think, which is if there's a monster in the room, if there's something horrendous next to us that is intimidating and that threatens us, usually the reaction is to look away and to try and ignore it. I think that's a real issue with surrounding this problem. I really feel we're at a moment where we are radically normalizing this kind of behavior. And I really fear about that. I have a genuine concern about it. So I hope that this film is really, if nothing else, just an urgent wake-up call to say that this isn't normal. These people aren't normal, and we shouldn't consider it so, you know.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Daryl, who is based, again, on a real character, and he does a lot of work and has pulled many people out of these communities through just kind of creating that emotional connection and supporting them. And you've obviously spent some time with him through the film and through some of the interviews that you've been doing recently. What have you learned from him through that time about the importance of making sure that we're still connecting with each other across political aisles and different groups like this?
Well, Daryl is the real deal, man. I mean, he's Charlottesville, he was there. Anytime that these people have an arranged kind of rally, he's there. He's opposing them. He's in their faces. He's the guy doing the stuff that we all should be doing, or kind of, if we, I mean, I'm terrified of doing that. I'm literally the last person who wants to be doing that, but thank God someone like him is doing it. He founded the One People's Project. He's managed to pull out 12 people and rehabilitate them and lead them on a path to a better life. He's certainly the hero of the story. There's no question about that. I did an interview with him the other day where I'm quite a nihilistic person. So I'm like, we're fucked. The whole thing's fucked. And he was with me, and he was so quick. He was like, "We're not fucked. We need to be doing more. We need to be reaching out to our communities and doing the work that he does." And my response to that was like, "Thank God that people like him exist and that are doing this work in the face of such evil." I really commend him, and he's done amazing work and continues to do so. And puts himself on the line. Yeah, it's amazing.
And Guy Nattiv's next project is going to be from his perspective.
I believe so, yeah.
As well, which is amazing. I wanted to ask you about your relationship with Danielle McDonald on screen. She was also in the short film. So I was interested what she brought to the story and your understanding of it in the early days when you were first having conversations from already having lived and breathed the actual story.
We were so concerned that what we were doing was wrong. Honestly, we were so concerned that we were bringing to life people that people that didn't deserve the platform and didn't deserve the spotlight and didn't deserve this kind of a story being told about them. So like we were very kind of, we were really on edge as actors the whole time because we were trying to like convince each other like this is okay, and sometimes I would be insecure about something and she would tell me no it's good because we have this in our pocket or whatever. I think more than anything, we were always trying to like rationalize these people's behaviors. Why are they doing this? Or why are they? Why would they say one thing and then act a completely different way? And Guy Nattiv, who'd spent so much time with the real people, and a good chunk of time, he was at their wedding, and he'd been in their lives for quite a long time. He was like, they are by nature irrational people. Stop trying to rationalize something that is irrational. It's not going to work for you. Just play them as irrational people. It'd be much easier for you. Yeah. And he needed to tell us that all the time because I think we were always approaching it from 2 points of view. One as an actor, and two as like a person who has a political opinion and a moral opinion about things. And sometimes you'd have to check one of those at the door when it came to doing certain scenes. But she's great. You can see she's a complete natural talent. She's a great scene partner and someone who did great work in the film. Yeah.
Oh, she's incredible. Did the two of you have specific conversations about how you wanted to play your performances off against each other to make sure you were kind of in line and telling your characters in the right way with each other?
We talked. I mean, we talked a little bit about the scenes about what kind of tracking the relationship and making sure it made kind of sense over the course of the film. But we improvised a lot of stuff to the point where Guy was like, "Can we just do one scene that I wrote, please?" But it doesn't work like that. I mean, I don't think I think it was going to be impossible for him to really capture true interactions of these people because Guy isn't like these people either. He's an outsider looking into this world, and we were two actors who were really trying to inhabit these people as much as possible, and he did. He really trusted us to kind of. There were many scenes where they were worried that it wasn't going to cut together. I'm sure it probably didn't, but it felt very nice to be able to just create stuff together, and we trusted each other enough to do that, and that's what we did.
And when you first met Bryan, I read a story that you guys were in a garage and you wanted to open the door because he was smoking, but he didn't want to because he said that someone could come by and try and shoot you guys. Was that kind of the first moment that you really understood the day-to-day danger to which he was under leaving this group and also still is under every day? And did that help you to understand him as a character?
A bit. You know, I mean, he first of all, he has a horrendous smoking habit, which needs to stop. I mean, it was kind of insane, like 60, like within an hour. I mean, it was like, and he kept saying, like, it's not that much. I was like, dude, I'm telling you, it's not good. But that's a paranoia that he has to live with. Yeah. That's what you got to do. If you make bad choices, that's the way it goes. I'm not saying that he can't be on a good path to correct the wrongs and make something good of his life, and I know that he has every intention of doing that, but I can't help him with that. We can't help him with that. Like that's the circumstance he finds himself in, you know. I will say that in my time with him, I did find someone to be extremely articulate, someone who was very family oriented. He'd often interrupt our conversations and go pick his kids up from school, and that's something I do because I have a couple of kids, and there was a lot of kind of common ground that we did have with one another. But you know, you're looking for the way into a character, and something where you can identify yourself in, and that's the jump off point, right, to do the movie. And there was no eureka moment for me in that conversation. It was great, and he was very generous with his time and everything, but I had to kind of go back to the drawing board in a way and kind of start again. Just because what's he going to say? You know, he's not going to give you the answers. Yeah.
And given that you only had a certain amount of time with him, what were some of the questions that you felt were important to ask him to really try to move the needle forward in understanding him a bit more?
Predominantly what his life was like before he got involved with this. Yeah. You know, what was his family life like? What was his relationship with his parents? Both of those are not good answers. So that stuff to me was important. I mean, no one is born a racist. No one is born a bigot, and no one is born intolerant to people. It's all learned behavior. You learn that. It's no accident that at the end of this film, where the character meets his son for the first time, but there's a moral conundrum that's kind of issue to the character, which is what kind of future are you going to give to your son? Is this cycle going to continue, or is it not? You've taken it off your skin. You've removed the topical surface of hate, but what lies beneath, and what kind of change still needs to happen before things can change and for the better. So there was lots that was useful from him, and he did help with the film a lot. And you know, I still have a very complicated relationship with him to this day. You know.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you a bit more about the opening sequence, because it's an incredibly jarring opening to the film. And what did you have to do for yourself to get yourself in the mindset for scenes like that, where you're being incredibly aggressive and saying horrendous things to people across? You know, this happens in film a lot, but this feels like a very extreme version of it. Was there anything that you did to kind of help yourself shut your own mind off and separate yourself from your character?
God, I mean, it really is the antithesis to who I am as a person. I hate conflict of any kind. So those scenes were particularly unpleasant to film. Also, remember, we're filming this in a community, in someone's community, you know, recreating these scenes and looking like that and turning up on people's doorsteps and, you know, shooting this film in those places. So, but then at the same time, we are actors, and we have to portray these people the way they are, and we have an obligation to do that. So I hope that we were as discreet as possible in some of those locations. But I don't know. I mean, this character has a level of detachment. He's detached from feeling. He's detached from emotion. He's detached from empathy, compassion, love, kindness. It's a rabbit hole for me. Like, I really had to kind of just find a way of figuring that out. I wish I was more articulate in the way that I was able to do that. I don't, you know, but I'm not. unfortunately.
No, I think you're incredibly articulate on all of this.
Yeah.
I also, it's so important that the film doesn't try to set it up as a story of redemption. It doesn't try to offer any solutions and answers. And, I've heard you say in interviews that you feel like it is a film that leaves the audience with questions. What for you personally are some of the questions that you feel are important that you want audiences to leave this asking themselves?
A lot of the things that I've kind of already mentioned. As a people right now, how far can we extend kindness? Who's deserving of compassion? Just because it seems on the surface like you've changed, does the real change actually happen within? And I would say that the hope of this movie, hopefully, is there's a lot of compassion and kindness from complete strangers to this character, and without those people, this man wouldn't have been given the opportunity to turn his life around. I mean, the people who fronted that money for him to have that surgery to remove that stuff, completely anonymous. He has no idea who that person is, and he looks in the mirror every day and sees a face that looks back at him that is given a new opportunity, and forever he'll always have the guilt of that. And that's I don't want to live. I would hate to live like that. I hate feeling that way. That is a form of purgatory for him, and that's a form of reckoning and atonement that he'll have for the rest of his life. So there's a lot of discussion in this movie. Sadly, just the other week with the racist tweets of a man in office condemning people at a rally with a bunch of people who are saying these kinds of incendiary things. I did a lot of research for this movie about a certain country at a certain time, Germany in about 1936, and it's devastating to see the research be so omnipresent and so the reality of today. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. And I know that you've also said that this character actually kind of crept up and stayed with you a little bit in a way that usually your characters don't when you leave set. You're usually able to very easily brush it off.
I like to think I'm a good actor and can just like turn it off. Sure. Yeah, no, I got home and my wife was like, after a few days, was like, can you just like fucking take a walk? Or like just go and like jog it off or something, Because you're carrying like hostility. You're carrying like, these people they're out to hate. They're out to incite violence. So there is an air of, you kind of carry it with you a little bit,
Did you find that going from this film to Rocketman, where you're then changing your weight again and your physical appearance, helped you to just immediately step away from it once you did that?
I was so grateful for Rocketman. I was like, let's just sing some Elton John songs. Jesus. No, it was so fun because I went to like sparkly costumes and like dancing and, and by the way, also the character I play in that film, Bernie Taupin, who's an incredibly accepting, loving, caring individual. Yeah. I mean, literally the antithesis of this person. I was so grateful for that, not to undermine the sense that that's also a character with its own complexities and challenges, but it was certainly welcome relief from something like this. Yeah.
And in both of those films, you are playing a real life person that you have access to, that you get to meet. When you're playing a subject that you have that sort of access to, do you find that you're looking at it more of just capturing an essence of their characteristics, or are you trying to really impersonate and embody them as a person?
I always get nervous about impersonation, mostly because I'm not very good at it. I just think it's a dangerous trap, You want to get as close to their spirit and kind of understand exactly who they kind of are and the life they've led, and then use that as the inspiration and you do your research and then kind of leave it. Yeah. And you have to create something, you have to do something that is uniquely you as much as you can, yeah.
And I'm curious about if you and Taryn were talking about your chemistry and how you wanted to play off against each other on scene, because I think you guys are scene partners in such a wonderful way. The scene in which Elton's playing the piano in his house and singing, and you're just looking at him from the doorway, I almost felt was like romantic look between two men who are friends. So how did you guys come about how you wanted to play off against each other?
Well, that song is a love letter to one another, but that scene is a reshoot. Because we fucked it up the first time. Don't tell Taryn I said that. Not that it was his fault, by the way. It's probably mine. No, I think there was so much other coverage in that scene. And what Dexter, our director, realized is he was like, oh God, it really is about these two guys who separate from one another, both have a gift. So Elton has this musical gift where you could literally take a manual to a television and he turned it into the most amazing song you've ever heard. There's literally a video on YouTube of him. Someone says, he says to an audience member, he's like, who's got a book? And they just randomly give him a book, and he puts the book on the piano, he starts playing chords, and he starts singing the book. And it sounds like a great song, so he's incredibly gifted. The same with Bernie, he has a way with words. He's a hopeless romantic for sure. And that, and at that point in time, and not many people know this, and it's not really featured in the film, but England were like, we don't like you. Like they'd had an album out already that they'd recorded in the studio, and they were like, we don't really get it. So this was a kind of that album was a last throw of the dice for them. Bernie was a chicken farmer. He was literally scraping dead chickens off the floor before he wrote your song. So this was a real eureka moment for the two of them. So yeah, that movie and that relationship is very beautiful and very loving.
And it's a film that really pulls no punches and isn't afraid to dive deep into all of the different elements, whether it's drug abuse, sexuality. But I know that they're famously very private about any disagreements that they may have had in their career. The film makes a point of, we've never had an argument in decades. So how did you navigate how you were going to portray that on screen, given that that's actually something that they are very tight-lipped on and you didn't have access to necessarily knowing the details of?
Well, they're kind of towing the political line there a little bit, because I just think it's impossible to work that intimately with a person and not have a fight. It's just impossible. Also, it's not great for a movie. So we just decided to ignore that and invent a little bit. But no, I mean, the thing is that there's just a great mutual respect between the two of them. I've seen so much concert footage of Elton throughout the years, even back in the 70s, the mid-70s and onward, where he'll stop the concert and he'll say, I have to give my thanks to Bernie because I wouldn't be able to do this without him. And I just love that. I really love that mutual appreciation that they both share for one another. And I love Elton. I'm a huge fan of his. So for me to get to do the movie was great. Yeah.
I wanted to jump to a couple of questions that we had from the audience. This one from Elijah. What's the most important thing that you learned on your journey through your role in Skin, and how did it affect you?
I don't know, because where's Elijah here? Oh, hey, man. Thanks for your question. Yeah, I don't know, because I still feel like a little, I'm still in a kind of moral conundrum about it, to be honest with you. Only because we are where we are as I'm English, obviously, but we just elected a prime minister. I don't know if anyone saw that. Anything you guys do, we could do just as stupidly. Fucking idiots.
It's a very serendipitous day to watch this film.
You're English. Exactly. No, we didn't.
The people
do
did
that.
not.
No, of course not. True. Conservative Party. But I don't know. So I've been doing a lot of interviews about the film recently, and I find myself in a complete conundrum about it. I really do. For me as an actor, I can't judge the character. It's what everyone always says when you enter a role. You can't judge the character you're playing. It's not a great place to start from. With this, it was extremely difficult not to, but you're trying and you're leaning into those things that you're taught not to do that. And I'm still not trying to do that. I'm still trying to accept him for everything that he's trying to do now and forgive him for the things that he has done. I've learned that putting on weight is difficult. Really was, actually. It was a struggle.
The next one is from Stephanie, who's asking, what part of yourself did you pull out to play this role sympathetically with the character? What part of yourself did you pull into the character in order to play him sympathetically to some degree?
I have 2 kids. Where's the person that asked that question? Just so I can acknowledge you. Hello, thank you for your question. I don't know, honestly, because you're trying to find similarities between the character and yourself, and obviously in this circumstance it's extremely difficult. I haven't led a life of intolerance and hatred towards people. I have never met my father. This character clearly had an issue with a male role model that he did not have. He didn't have a strong leader. He didn't have someone who pat him on the back and said all this thing. That in no way am I forgiving him for the things he did because of that. I'm just saying that can lead to these decisions, to these bad choices. So my relationship with Bill Kemp in the film was extremely important to me. It wasn't as important to Guy, and I think I could talk to you about that for a millennia. But it was important to me because I think that I put so much at stake in that relationship, because I think Bryan as a character really wanted that approval, and it was a cycle of you go out, you beat someone up, you're told well done, and you get drunk, and the cycle will continue, and that's just all it was. And this is about a character who's completely unconscious in the beginning. The process of the film, the journey of the film, and the characters is about coming to an awakening, coming to a consciousness. I guess the kids. I have 2 children, obviously, and that relationship, finding the tenderness and the sweetness in that, and the vulnerability and the innocence and the childishness that he can share with the kids that he doesn't get to show to everybody else. Maybe I'm more in tune with. But those kinds of things, trying to find anything that was very similar, was very few and far between, really.
And this one is from Xavier, who notes himself as someone who is thinking of getting a tattoo, asking...
Not on your face.
The movie teaches you one thing. Asking how long the makeup process for all of the facial tattoos was each day.
Where is Xavier? I know it's pedantic, but I just like to say hello. He's gone. He didn't even want to hear his own question. Fuck him. No. He's probably maybe in the bathroom. Also, it's a tough film. He wants to stick around after that. He's probably got a drink. Smart. 3.5 hours if it was just the face and the hands. About 5 if it was the body. Which, by the way, on a budget of this is just, it's suicide. I mean, you can't have your lead actor in the chair for that amount of time and not be shooting. So the fact that it's even, that we have a film that we can exhibit is kind of amazing. Yeah.
Did you feel more pressure on your performance as a result because you knew that you had less time to really nail it and capture each scene?
No, I was grateful that we did have the time, because ultimately the tattoos are doing 80% of the work for me. Of course, in scenes when you're trying to be sympathetic, or you're trying to be tender, or you're trying to show a different side of yourself, they're working 80% against you. Yeah. So it was a toss-up.
Yeah. And then there's 2% left. I wanted to just kind of end by asking you about, you've given such incredible but very different performances in Skin and Rocketman, and what aspect of each one you feel the proudest of as an actor?
I never watch any of the films I've done. Mm-hmm. I don't like watching the work I've done. I can glean nothing from it. I'm also a perfectionist, and if I watched it, I'd have a heart attack. So fuck that. I don't know. I always think that the best thing is yet to come. I always think you can get it better next time. That's why I love acting. That's why I love this job. That's why I feel very privileged to do what I do, because I get to go and be someone else, and I get to go and give all of myself to something, and usually feel unsatisfied when you drive home, and then it usually gives you the motivation to come back and try harder the next time. And that's why it's an addiction that I won't be able to get over, no matter how much therapy I do with it. It's a thing that I've done my entire life. I haven't done anything else. And I'm very fortunate to say that. So I take it very seriously. But I can't be satisfied with anything, because it's not that there is a finality to that doesn't create work and doesn't create, characters and intrigue and spontaneity and all that stuff. So. Yeah.
Well, I always think that the best films are ones that make you question things and have conversations after, and I have no doubt you will all leave here doing this tonight. Skin is in theaters this Friday, July 26th, courtesy of A24. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you.